the 2021 Public Service Career Expo. You are attending the law enforcement session, and we are so happy to have you joining us today. My name is Annette Vaughn, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. I have been in human resources and had a chance to work with local cities and counties for the last 15 years. And so I definitely have a passion for local public service. And I've got 4 individuals with me here today that definitely have that passion for serving the public as well. I'm going to introduce them here in just a moment. In the meantime, I would encourage teachers or administrators, if you wouldn't mind, if you'd like to share your presence with us, look at that chat box on the right side of your screen, and you can give us the name of your middle school or high school and how many students you have joining us. We will also use that chat box for our questions later. But to get going here first, I'm going to have each of our guests introduce themselves and just share a little bit about where they are currently serving and what their role is. So Deputy Kim Kerr, would you start us off?
Hello, Deputy Kim Kerr, the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office, or David Kim Kerr, sorry. Patrol deputy, the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office. Been in law enforcement for 12 years. 9 of those years have been with Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office.
All right, fantastic. Sergeant Gillespie.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Gillespie. I'm a sergeant with the Johnson County Park Police. We are the police department that patrols the county park system in Johnson County. I've been with them 19 years.
Fantastic. Thank you. Officer Harrell.
Good afternoon. My name is Officer Damon Harrell, police officer with the Kansas City, Missouri Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Been an officer for 24 years next month, and I currently serve in our employment division, where my job is to go out and find individuals who want to serve in some capacity on our police department. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And finally, Captain Harvey.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle Harvey. I'm a captain with the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office. I am our public information officer / recruiter. I've been with the Sheriff's Office last 10 years, and that's all I got for you.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, students, you probably noticed at the end of our video, there was a little bit of information about this idea of agilities. Some of you may have done some activities before our session today to learn about agilities, but essentially it's where your interests, things that you're interested in doing, and your skills, what you're good at, meet. And what we do is we call that agilities. So those are important concepts to think about when you're considering what type of future career path would you want to have. One of the agilities that shows up very frequently in law enforcement is the agility of serving and caring. So I would like to toss that question out to all of you. What does serving and caring look like in your role on a day-to-day basis?
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so for me, that looks like putting others before self, understanding that I took the role to be of service to others. So being able to go and be able to help handle issues that that person who called in may have, whether it be from me, my department, or referring them somewhere else. So, just every day, how can I help somebody? And that's what that looks like for me.
Yeah, thank you. Captain Harvey, what about in your role? How would you describe what the serving and caring agility looks like on a day-to-day basis?
In my role as a captain of the Sheriff's Office, in the public information recruiter, I get to go out there and do quite a few different events and meet a lot of people coming up that will want more information about the Sheriff's Office, don't know exactly what we do, and providing that information, and then handing out little things here and there. Like I get to hand out a lot of candy to kids and whatnot. And then prior to this, I worked in our detention center, and working in there, you get to meet a lot of different people that has made a few bad decisions in their life and are in jail, and getting to talk with a lot of them and treating them like a human, and then seeing them outside of that detention center. And seeing how they may have seceded outside of there, and just seeing that aspect of going from that bad place in their life to a better place, that's been great for me, and seeing that, and them thanking me for treating them like a human and treating them just good. So.
Thank you. And Deputy Kim Kerr, the serving and caring, what does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
For me, it's when I go out and interacting with the public, showing compassion when it's needed, and just being a friend and being a person that people can go to if they do have an issue, or somebody they can trust to be able to help them when in need.
And finally, we'll toss this question to you as well, Sergeant Gillespie. In your role as a park police officer, what does serving and caring look like in that particular role?
Well, our parks and facilities were created for people to come out and enjoy. And our number one mission is to make sure that they feel safe when they come here. And we do that by just sometimes being a presence, walking around, vehicle patrol, so that people see us and be safe and feel welcome, that they'll come back.
That's fantastic. Well, students, you've just gotten a short sneak peek into the world of several different areas of law enforcement. And so what we want to use the bulk of our time here today to do is actually take your questions. What do you want to know about a law enforcement career? I would encourage you to have your teachers use the chat box there to start typing questions in and let us know what you want to know. And I do see that there's already one here from Turner High School. And I'll ask this of each of you because I think you'll each have a different perspective on it. Did you want to be a police officer while you were in high school? So Officer Harrell, I'll have you start out with that. Did you want to be a police officer when you were in high school? And if not, what led you into the law enforcement career path?
Yeah, I love the question. In high school, didn't know quite. I wanted to be a police officer, but what I did know is I wanted to be in a position to where I can help someone. And so I knew I had that heartbeat in me. And then just from high school going to college, seeing the opportunities where I could serve in that capacity. And, God saw fit to put the police department in front of me and opened that door for me. And I walked right through it. And it was one of the best decisions I made in my life.
Fantastic. Captain Harvey, did you want to be a police officer in high school?
Yes, very much. Ever since I can remember, I either wanted to be in military or law enforcement. And then when I got to that age, started applying to different agencies. And I had a family member that worked at the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office. And, here I am 10 years later after getting hired. And it's been great.
Fantastic. Sergeant Gillespie, same question for you. Did you want to be a police officer in high school, and what led you into your career path?
In high school, no. I had no clue what I wanted to do when I was in high school. Even when I started college, I didn't declare a major. I just kind of went to college to be going to college. But around my sophomore year in high school, I'd worked with enough KCPD officers at a retail job I had, that just talking with them, interacting with them, and they were a real positive influence on me. It kind of got me geared toward going that way and declared the major that I did and led me down the career path that I'm on. But in high school, no.
And Deputy Kim Kerr, same question for you. I love how everyone kind of had a different way of getting into law enforcement. Did it start for you in high school?
For me, it started when I was in preschool. I always wanted to be in law enforcement, and that's something I strived for. Had a family member that was in the sheriff's office a long time ago, and then got out, which he regretted it. So here I am today, 9 years later at Wyandotte, but 12 years altogether in law enforcement.
Fantastic. Great answers for sure. And students, please keep those questions coming in the chat box. Here's another question for you. I'll field this to Captain Harvey. What is the education and training needed to do the job of a law enforcement officer?
Well, applying with any I think any agency around here is high school diploma. That's all you need, at least to get on with us. We have a few different opportunities. Correctional specialist for us, you just need that high school diploma, need to be 18 years old. And you come on with us, you're working in the jail, and you're doing everything a deputy does inside of our jail, just not allowed to go outside that jail. But once you turn 21, you can transition to deputy and do everything a deputy does. And also our correctional specialists start at 17 an hour, and you get excellent benefits. So it's a great way to start. Fantastic.
Thank you for that. Officer Harrell, what would you say is the most exciting or most rewarding part of the job that you get to do?
Yeah, so right now, my current position, going out and talking with people who are convinced or not so convinced this is the type of career for them. But after talking with them, the ones that say, hey, I've heard enough and I'd like to be in that capacity, because it's nothing like it to where you're really helping people and in a position to where you have the authority to help people. Yeah, there are days where we have to do the other things like arrest bad guys and but I think all of us would agree that being in a position to where I have the authority and the power to help someone is my greatest joy. And I get that with my current position being a recruiter, but also when I was working the streets on patrol, pulling a car over because their tire is flat and helping them change that tire. I'm helping, and when you pull away, there's no greater joy than knowing that you was of service to someone. And that's what it was for me. It is for me.
Fantastic. Sergeant Gillespie, what is it about the job that you love the most or you feel is the most exciting?
I'm a people person. Going back to your previous question, I didn't know I wanted to be a cop, but I knew I was not going to be working in a cubicle interfacing with computers or anything. I'm a people person, and this is a people person job. So even when it's a negative interaction or an enforcement situation, I'm able to still have that passion where I'm interacting with a person, even if they're not particularly happy to be interacting with me. I enjoy interacting with people, and I get to do that all day long.
Deputy Kim Kerr, what do you love about the role?
What I love is being able to, like Sergeant Gillespie and Officer Harrell were talking about, is helping people, serving people, getting the joy of knowing what you've done is right, and just knowing that you've impacted somebody else's life, even if it's something so minute as buying them a sandwich at a restaurant or buying somebody's lunch. It's just fulfilling, just knowing that I've been able to touch somebody in a positive way, because there's a lot of times where we deal with public that is not in the light or not in the positive way, more or less the negative. So it's great being able to do something great for somebody, just to show that we are all human. We're all the same. No matter if we're in this shirt, wearing this badge, or just regular plain clothes.
And Captain Harvey, what stands out to you about the job being your favorite part?
Just serving the community, and like Deputy Kim Kerr just said, just having that opportunity to do that and to have those positive interactions and just be out there and make a difference.
Thank you. And I see another question coming in on our chat box. This is kind of along the more practical side. How long do you keep a cop car before retiring it? How would you answer that?
It depends on the budget. So if higher budget agencies usually replace those cars a lot faster, lower budget agencies will keep that car along, to put more miles on it until it gives out. So until they have to buy another car. So it really just depends on the agency.
Is that true for all of you?
Absolutely, and it will vary from year to year. We're a smaller agency, so we are one of those that tries to keep the cars as long as possible. But if we've got to get rid of a car to get a car, or if we know we're not going to get money for new vehicles, it'll change it. It really does depend, but we try to make sure that there really is no tread left on those tires when they're done. They are done when they're done.
And I smile because, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I smile because that's kind of a running joke within the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department and our fellow brothers in our Kansas agency. We keep our cars to, like Mr. Gillespie said, till the wheels fall off. But then we go to the Kansas side and their cars barely got tread taken off and they're changing cars. So we're like, hey, can we get some new cars? So Kansas City, Missouri, we keep our cars for a long time. My current car I have now has over 200,000 miles on it. But it runs, so.
Wow.
I still see you guys in a lot of Crown Vics. You don't see too many of those on the Kansas side.
Exactly, and that's my whole point. We keep our cars. We fix them and fix them until they can't be fixed. But it's budget, like Captain Harvey said. It's budget.
Well, along those lines, what are some of the other most common types of equipment that you use on a regular basis in your role?
Footwear, I think, is actually pretty important. That gets overlooked. You're on your feet a lot. My agency, because we want our guys out of the cars, literally walking in the parks, we provide boots for our officers, and they are expensive. They're about $200 to $250 a pair. But it's because it really is an investment, because when we want our folks out walking around all day, if you put them in a cheap pair of boots, they could get injured or hurt just walking.
Yeah, what other types of uniform or equipment are really essential to the role that maybe students wouldn't necessarily think about?
I would say that the other one would be our ballistic vest, what we wear that protects us every day. You're wearing those things anywhere from 2 hours because you have to go to court and you're there to testify, all the way up through 12, 16-hour days, which I've been there, done it. I've even done it up to 21 hours where you're wearing that thing nonstop. But they're also very pricey. They range anywhere between $750 to about $1,500, and we have to replace those generally about every 5 years. So it's a very expensive piece of equipment, but it's also life-saving.
Well, changing gears just a little bit, and please just keep those questions coming if you've got others, but let me toss this one out to you. What is the most challenging part about being a law enforcement officer?
For me, the most challenging part, especially when I first came on, was to see young people or children or babies, being a victim of a crime. It took me a while to be able to work through those because, again, a baby or a young child is someone who can't protect themselves. And when they're a victim of crime, it really stuck me for a long time until I learned how to manage it and deal with it and do my job in spite of. To help that individual, but that was tough, the most challenging for me.
I'd say
Others, who else would have a challenge? Would like to speak to what is most challenging?
For me, the most challenging would be having to tell a loved one that their family member has passed away. So having to go and do those notifications, it's always tough. I've been on a couple calls, either from car accidents where there are fatalities, to people that died of either natural causes or even suicidal. So just going up and all the human emotions that are going along at that moment, it's tough. Trying to break that news to somebody that has known that person for the last 30, 40 years. And then all of a sudden now they've passed. So it's very tough for a lot of us having to give those notifications, but it also shows that we are also human.
Sergeant Gillespie, does anything stand out particularly challenging to you?
I think particularly when you're new in the profession, not taking things personally. You'll get dispatched to a call sometimes where people are already upset at someone else or a situation, and your job is to deal with that. So they sometimes become upset at you, and you have to learn to separate that they're really not upset at me, Matt. They're upset at the officer that has shown up, and there's a challenge to figure that out, that it was not personal while you're handling the call, and then remembering when the call's over that it was not personal. It was just you doing your job, and that they don't mean it to be. It just sounds that way.
Captain Harvey, they've listed several things that are challenging in the role. What besides those things would you point out?
Well, I mean, as a recruiting. So this society nowadays is really pushing a lot of people away from law enforcement, but we need those people to come in and fill these positions. We need good people come in. So that's a big deal right now. So, I mean, if you're slightly interested and we'll take you on. So.
Thank you for that. So on a little bit of a lighter note, we have another question that's come in from a high school. How much caffeine do you consume a day? And how long have you been on a case or a stakeout? I'm assuming at one time.
I consume too much caffeine a day. That's the short answer, is too much. I'm a coffee drinker, whether it's winter or summer, and I drink that all morning, and then I'll transition to some other caffeinated beverage in the afternoon or evening. So the short answer is too much.
And sometimes you got to limit yourself. So
You do.
I try to do a cup of coffee in the morning and then water the rest of the day. Working night shift, I think that was a little bit different because our shifts are 12-hour shifts in detention, and there'd probably be at least 2 good cups of coffee, maybe even 3, depending on how much sleep you got the day before, especially wife and kids and whatnot, just depending on that.
So what about the second part of that question? How long have you been on a case or a stakeout? Who's had a particularly long amount of time that they've spent on either of those?
For myself, I spent for a couple of years, I worked undercover, and we worked in undercover vehicles, and we're watching an individual. So I remember nights working 10 hours watching one individual or a house or something. So yeah, or been on what we call Operation 100, where you have an armed barricaded party and you're sitting in one position watching that house for hours on hours in one position on your knees, and just having to go to the restroom but can't leave your spot. So it was tough. In the wintertime, Missouri, Kansas, we get all weather, all season. So yeah, I'll spend hours and hours just watching the house, watching the individual, watching a car. So yeah, I've done those 10-hour nights of doing just that all night.
What's that like?
It's tough because, again, being human, you gotta go to the restroom, but you can't move away from that house. So sometimes it gets kind of prehistoric to where you got to find a little corner to go to the restroom if you can, but keep your spot. So it gets, those are things we don't talk about, but those are things that happen.
I was deployed to Mississippi after Katrina, and I worked 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for 14 days straight. That's my longest stretch.
Yeah, that would have to be exhausting. Anyone else have a long stretch or a long case or stakeout?
Never had one that long, not 14 days. but I mean, I've done it 12 hours, just like what Officer Harrell was saying, 12 hours standing on the side of a house, watching the back side of a house, and especially in the wintertime, and you got to go to the bathroom, you improvise.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this question. How would you say law enforcement, I know Captain Harvey, you mentioned recruitment has been a challenge. How would you say that law enforcement has changed over the last few years?
There's much more of an emphasis on communication and de-escalation. Years past, if a situation was going to need force, we were basically taught just to deal with force. There's much more of an emphasis now not to get to that. And that starts from the very beginning on a call, just on how you show up, how you carry yourself, and how you talk to people. There is a much bigger emphasis on communication.
And I'd like to add transparency. So, yes, they want to see what's happened, and beforehand, I think agencies would keep that and investigate it and not release videos and whatnot of different events happening. I think nowadays we got to release that a lot faster and get that information out there a lot faster.
And I have to agree with Sergeant Gillespie and Captain Harvey. Whenever we go to a scene, there's always a camera. Everybody's phones has cameras, so we definitely have to be mindful how we carry ourselves, what we say, what we do. Because Sergeant Gillespie, he made a point, before we dealt with force, we trained for force. Now we have to be more what we call verbal judo. How do I talk that person out of this situation, and rely more on that as much more than going hands-on and force and all those kind of things. So our training has definitely changed because, again, everyone has cameras, and so we have to be mindful. But, we're not afraid of cameras because cameras help save us sometimes. People falsely accuse us all the time. This person did this. Well, cameras there to prove that, no, I didn't do that. It may not be exactly what you're saying. So it works both ways. It's benefit for the community and for law enforcement.
And I'd like to add another thing too, the type of force that we use. Beforehand, you could hit them and whatnot in certain spots, to wear them down, whereas we are going through another transition to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for law enforcement officers. So it's mainly wearing them down before really having to resort to strikes or anything else.
And what type of ongoing training do you have to do on a regular basis for that particular area, but just anything in general about your role? Obviously, you go through the academy, but the learning and the training is continual. What is that like?
Well, the training and stuff that we're always doing, for Kansas, it's 40 hours a year. We have to have 40 hours of continuing education. Credits, and a lot of that has to do with sidearms, firearms. So we go out and we'll shoot, practice, and then qualify. We do have to qualify twice a year to be able to be state certified and allowed to be able to carry the weapon. But then also too, going through several hours of training on how to speak to people, which before it used to be, hey, let's do a lot of hands-on, defensive tactics. We're getting away a little bit of that and filling that time in with the verbal judo or surviving verbal conflict, the de-escalation tool. Because we're finding out that people nowadays are more apt to want to talk to somebody versus wanting to go hands-on.
Interesting perspective with that. Yeah, I want to ask each of you all as well, what would you say to a middle school student, to a high school student who may be listening and thinking, I wonder if this is something I could do or want to do? What advice would you give to someone that age trying to figure out their career path and figure out if law enforcement might be for them? And we can just start with you, Deputy Kim Kerr.
Well, for me, what I would do is, or what I did do, is I asked a lot of questions. I went around to other officers, deputies, even highway patrolmen, and just asked questions about the job. Because, my thing is if they don't know the answer, then is this something that I want to even do? But it was always positive, and everything that they kept, answering and stuff just really made me feel more secure about the job, about something that I wanted to pursue and follow as a career.
Yeah, Sergeant Gillespie, what would you say to students who might be considering this career path?
Well, in addition to what Deputy Kim Kerr was talking about, look for those organized opportunities, summer camps, different outings they have. I'll give a shout out to KCPD. I remember they were doing a crime scene class that I saw on Facebook designed for middle schoolers and teenagers that I was disappointed I couldn't take my son to because it fell on a weekend that he had something else going on. But look for those organized opportunities to do that with police departments. A lot of them run summer camps and seminars and things, and you'll get a chance to interact with them on a more personal level and also kind of get a taste for what the job's really like.
Fantastic. Thank you. Officer Harrell, what would you add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Sergeant Gillespie. You asked about advice too. One, I try to give advice on our middle schoolers or students, period, as to watch your social media. When you're preparing for a job in law enforcement and we're vetting you or we're doing background checks on you, the first thing that's being checked is your social media pages. So be careful, because your social media is not what somebody says about you, it's what you put out there regarding yourself. So you can show up in a suit and tie, but if your social media shows otherwise, it really shows your character. So be careful what you put out there, because that describes yourself. And we do here in Kansas City Police, we do youth academies, which I'm part of. And the purpose of those is so young people can see us outside as uniform. We're human beings. We have the same pains. We have family structures. So we're human. So we use those opportunities to show we're human. But we all want to do the same thing, which is serve. So one, watch your social media. Be careful what you put out there, because we're going to look at that. But then, like Sergeant Gillespie said, go to those events and be around officers who you can see them in another, being human beings and the same cares and worries and concerns that you have. And then learn about this whole thing to make your decision.
Captain Harvey, what guidance would you share?
Well, piggyback on Officer Harold there, watch who you hang out with too. Just continue to do what you're supposed to do. Driving and whatnot, just follow all the laws right there as much as you, or best as you can. And if you're in high school, if you have time, get a job, get that experience. If you don't have a job while in high school, you're concentrating on that, sports and whatnot. Right out of high school, get that job, get that experience before you come into a law enforcement agency. We look for that a lot, and that really helps develop you as a person, how to deal with people, just supervisors, bosses, other coworkers, and whatnot. That can really assist you in this career, and that's the best advice I could give you right now is just gain that experience.
Thank you. Another lighthearted question that's come in from our chat box. Did any of you play high school sports? And I might add to that and say, did any of you play high school sports, or what were you involved in activity-wise as a student? Did that help you in your future career in law enforcement, what you did as a high school student?
Yes, I played high school football and college football. And even when I go out recruit now, I go to the athletic department, because somehow a lot of your athletes are criminal justice majors. So whenever I go out recruit at colleges, I go to the athletics and find that, and it's funny how that works, but a lot of your athletes are criminal justice majors. And so that's a good recruiting spot for us. And so, but yes, I played high school and college football.
I played football and baseball in high school, and I was also involved in Boy Scouts. What all three of those have in common is a team concept, that those are not activities you do by yourself. You have to trust people around you to do things to be successful at all three of those. So I didn't realize it at the time I was doing those, but all three did have helped me in my career as I've gotten along.
See, I did high school sports up until, sorry about that. All right. I did high school sports up until sophomore year and actually went to Turner. So I did football and track and field. But after that, my junior and senior year, I got into working. So I traded that out. I worked and gained that experience because I wanted to be able to pay for more things. And
For me, it was playing baseball in high school. I mean, I played ever since, Little League, and then played then did track and field, and something I've always enjoyed, and it definitely helps because it is the team sport. Just like in this career, we're all a team. We all, we're one machine, and it works well when all of us are able to work together.
Those are great answers. And on that note too, would you be able to explain how do police departments, different sheriff's departments, park police, how do they interact with one another? How often do they interact with one another? How does that work?
Well, in our case, and we're going to be similar to the sheriff's office in this regard, but we have a county commission because we have parks all over the county. So it doesn't make any sense for us to just have a city commission. So we have a county commission. We interact with other agencies all the time. We travel in between parks going through every city in this county. And on an average week, I'm probably on 5 or 6 calls, not in the parks, where I'm either close and I roll up on something or they dispatch to something. That's probably where our profession is pretty awesome. From an officer level to an officer level, we're gonna look out for each other. I mean, our uniforms are different colors, but we're on the same team. And if I'm rolling through somewhere and someone needs help, we're gonna stop and help them. And I know if I need help with something, somebody else is gonna show up.
And that's the same here. I know at the officer level, for example, if you're chasing a stolen car and that car leaves your area and go over to Kansas, our radio system, we got what's called, regional communication, where we can get on and communicate with our fellow officers here. Because like Sergeant Gillespie said, we're all a team, we're all a family, and we're here for the common good of people to serve our community. So if I'm chasing a stolen car that goes to Kansas, I want to go on the radio and say, hey, Kansas, I don't know your streets, got this stolen car coming. And they'll get on and help us and get with us. So, because they know their area. So we work together because crime don't stay in one area, it crosses borders, and we wear different color uniform, but we have the same mission.
Yeah, just like what Officer Harrell was saying, I know I was in on a chase of a kidnapping victim inside of a vehicle that came over from KCMO, or I think it started in Independence. So we were working with KCMO, Independence PD, Missouri Highway Patrol, Kansas Highway Patrol, KCK, and myself. So there were 6 different agencies all trying to save this kidnapped victim from Arkansas. So, and again, it was teamwork. We end up catching the vehicle and end up getting the people in custody and saving the individual. So, or rescuing the individual. So again, it's all teamwork, and we all are here to do the exact same job. It's just some of us are able to venture into other cities due to the fact that we are county. So it is awesome.
That's so great to hear that perspective and kind of how that works and that collaboration. Well, students, that is all the time we have right now for our questions. I do wish we had more time. This was a fantastic discussion. I hope you'll join me in thanking our presenters for their time and for being here today. During our discussion, we did mention many of the different opportunities, whether it be summer camps, Explorer programs, etc. All of that information is on our website at careerexpokc.org, and we'd encourage you to check that out and see if there's something in your area where you might be able to become a little bit more involved. So with that, we'll sign off, and thank you, teachers and students, for being with us today.